can do this one. Yay. All right, should we get started? Okay. Hi everybody and welcome to the lectures in the LLC. I am delighted to introduce Rick Rebello. He is a horror writer and filmmaker based in Fall River, Massachusetts. His fiction appeared in dozens of magazines and anthologies, including Dracula, Beyond Stoker, issue number 6, Monsters in the Mills, Halloweenthology, Flash of the Undead, Dead Girls Walking, Children of the Dead, Monster Mag, The Chamber, and Scars Magazine. His short story, Kiss of Death, was featured in Monsters in the Mills, an anthology that was nominated for the 2024 Shirley Jackson Award and shortlisted for the 2024 Australasian,
yeah, that's a tough one.
Shadows Award for Best Edited Work. Mr. Ricardo is a member of the Horror Writers Association's Massachusetts Horror Writers, and We Are Providence. We are delighted to welcome him here today. We are excited at the eve of Halloween to have him here to speak. I couldn't be more excited to welcome our colleague, our friend, Rick, to speak today.
Thank you, Emily, thank you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the support of the college, obviously, and all the work that you've done to kind of set this up for me. So today, let us talk about the horrors of self-publishing horror. And the reason why I wanted to do this and share it with you is that in the last few years, I've been kind of on an exploration of trying to learn and understand what it is to try to self-publish, right? So what we're going to learn, how to run through a draft and look at a publishable story, some differences between, actually this one we're not going to cover too much, the different type, microfiction, flash fiction, short fiction, novelettes, novellas. We're going to talk a little bit about shun manuscript standards, finding beta readers, right? Things like how to handle rejection, basics of self-publishing on KDP. That's going to be more of our emphasis than anything else. But essentially today, let's work on the self-publishing process, which is first, write, second, format, third, submit, and then fourth, hopefully, at the end of the day, publish, all right? Now, some of you I know in here have taken my class, and if you've taken my classes, you know I hate it when you have to sit there and write the entire time. So what I've done is I've got this QR code up, so if you want, you could just scan it, and it'll take you to both the PowerPoint and PDF version of this. That way you don't have to worry about remember anything. And if you see anything you want to go back and refer to, you can kind of just jump back there, all right? And I will be showing this QR code again at the end of the thing. All right. So a couple of years ago, I was turning 49 and I decided I was going to do something foolish. My whole life I'd been writing stories and certainly horror stories, but never tried to get anything submitted, never tried to send anything or create anything for publication. And frankly, for most of my life, the concept of self-publishing was just not something that existed, right? Unless you're going to photocopy things on a photocopy machine, staple them, and hand them out to your friends, right? Other than that, there really was no self-publishing. Certainly not easy and certainly not cheap, all right? So I sent a story, The Steel Tomb, to the Chamber magazine, and they published it on their website. And I was like, oh, wow, someone actually cared about something I wrote. That's cool, right? So I started to catch the bug, right? It was the first piece of fiction that I published. I thought it would be my last. And then I was like, wouldn't it be really cool just once to have an actual book that I could hold in my hands that has one of my stories in it? Like, wouldn't that be awesome, right? So I started sending out stories, and Wicked Shadow Press put me in Halloweenthology 2023. And I was so excited, and I got it in the mail, and I was so happy, and I was finally holding a book. And then I was like, I don't think I'm quite satisfied. So I just started writing stories and writing stories and writing stories and sending them out and sending them out and getting rejected and sending it out again and getting rejected and sending it out again. So now I'm in over 20 anthologies, right? Not self-published. These are published from external publishing houses, right? And I had this month alone, this thing's a little slight, 7 more coming out this month. Lizzie, by the way, Lizzie Borden House Anthology, we will be at the Lizzie Borden House November 9th. All the different writers that are in the book hopefully will be there doing readings, which will be kind of cool, all right? So that's a big one coming out. This one is self-published, my Halloween collection, but all the other stuff were on different things, right? So you might be asking yourself, or I asked to ask myself, how the hell did I get here, right? Well, think about the first story you ever wrote, right? Think about what motivated you to write that. Think about the initial thought that came to you and the fact that you thought that thought was so valid that you wanted to somehow either put it to paper or to a digital file, right? For me, I know exactly and remember exactly when it happened, right? 1984, I was 10 years old. I went to the Fall River South Branch Public Library, which nowadays is a place, daycare, right? Which is great, but after it was shut down, they turned it into a bizarro smoke, which I almost took personally. Like I was really sad to see my public library turn into a pot shop, right? But at the South Branch Library, I met the great Dave Mello. And Dave, even though I was very young, gave me a copy of Clive Barker's In the Flesh, which I had absolutely no business reading at 11 years old, right? But he knew I liked scary stories, so he's like, if you like scary stories, read this, right? And from that point on, I was reading way above my, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have the same story where you got into some stuff that was a little bit above your level when you were young, and you kind of get on that path, right? So one of the first things, if you want to get into this, you know, talk to your librarians, go to your libraries. They're a great resource, right? You know, I'm proud to still have Dave in my life and to have him as a friend 40 years later, you know, because when I do go to the public library and do my events and things there, I feel like I'm giving back to him because at the end of the day, I was just a Portuguese kid who didn't know how to read English that well, but when I showed up at the library, it helped sort of transform my life. It showed me that I could be something other than just somebody that worked at Quaker Fabric or Shelbourne Shirt, right? Not that there's anything wrong working at Quaker Fabric or Shelbourne Shirt, but it just gave me a different path, okay? So in the library, funny story, they had a 25-cent used book box, and I was attracted to Stephen King's The Shining, right? Partly because I knew it was scary, right? Plus, this version of The Shining, which is in my office still, had a foil cover, which looked really cool, right? So on top of Clive Barker's In the Flesh, I read The Shining in the 4th grade, right? And I remember writing a 4-pager, a sequel to The Shining, in the 4th grade, which is my first piece of horror fiction that I wrote, okay? The line that drew me in the book, I don't know why, in 4th grade, Officious Little Prick just sounded so cool. I don't know why. I don't even know, I still to this day am on the fence of what the hell officious means, right? But I knew when I was a kid and I read that, I was sold. I was like, I'm on board for the rest of it. So I ended up reading about a drunk father and family and abuse and everything else, right? The thing that cemented it for me was my mom went to a store called Big Value Outlet in Fall River, and for $3 she bought me Stephen King's Night Shift collection on tape. I believe it was 1986, right? And I wore these things out. I played them back and forth until side A sounded like side B, right? Those of you who had cassettes know what I'm talking about, right? Until it sounded like the devil was trying to talk to me, okay? So now, you know, I'm doing readings at the library, working with Dave, working with other authors, and it all just comes from that initial, you know, thought of, what is this? What is this book? What is this story? Why do I like it, right? Why is this the journey I want to travel on, right? So the question for you guys is, how can you do the same or similar, right? That's why you're here, right? That's probably the question you have. It's like, that's great, Rick, but what about me? Like, how can I do this? First, you just got to start writing. You just got to start writing. You got to put one foot in front of the other and start writing. That's it. Okay? You can't wait for somebody externally to kick you into it. You have to just start doing it, right? Take a class, attend a workshop. Congratulations, you've already met that qualification, right? I can't express enough, my master's degree is in media studies, which is all fine and well, but I'm gonna tell you right now, my colleagues who do have English degrees, way ahead of me, right? As far as understanding and knowing the fundamentals of writing, as far as just having practice writing and getting the chops, because writing, it's a lot like working out. You gotta kind of build that muscle up, right? You gotta build the muscle up. Especially if you're gonna try to do a novel and you're gonna try to knock out 50, 60,000 words, you better have strong muscles, right? But just like going to the gym, you can't show up the first day and bench 350 pounds, right? Unless you're on steroids, then God bless you, right? You gotta work at it, right? So taking your classes here at the college, taking bonus classes or workshops, all of these things are tremendously valuable. This summer, I went to a company, Crystal Lake Publishing. They had a workshop for working on a novel, and I paid some money, and I took the workshop throughout the summer, and I got to work with some of their professional editors and got some good feedback and stuff like that. And even at my age, right, I'm still gonna take classes, I'm still gonna ask questions, I'm still gonna take feedback. The whole concept of lifelong learner is a thing. It's a real thing, okay? So learn something new, different, right? Next. Okay. So you might say to me, people always ask authors, the question that Stephen King hates above all other questions, to the point where when people interview him and they go, you know, we're going to ask you, right? He goes, you're going to ask, where do I get my ideas? Right? Authors are constantly asked, where do you get your ideas? All right? There really is no good answer for that other than everywhere. Right? Like I say here, follow an intrusive thought, an idea, or a concept, right? Open up your radar and take the world in around you. And ask yourself, could that be a story? Like, what if that happened? Or what if this happened, right? You know, recently I wrote a story that got published by the Horror Writers Association about a guy who finds an 11-foot animatronic werewolf on Facebook Marketplace, and he goes up to Salem and he buys it from this witch, not knowing that the amulet that comes with the werewolf turns the werewolf into a real werewolf at one point at night. And that story, people will say, where the hell did you get that craziness? And I'm like, I buy stupid stuff on Facebook Marketplace, right? And if you've ever bought stupid stuff on Facebook Marketplace, you've bought it from questionable people, right? So you have to ask yourself, what if these questionable people have bad intentions? What if they just so happen to be a witch, right? Because witches might want animatronics in their front lawn too, right? They want to enjoy Halloween just like the rest of us, right? So what happens if you buy one from them, okay? Simple ideas, you know, stuff that you think about every day. What if this? What if that? What if this happened to this, right? A lot of my books, as you see in here, are cryptid-based. Those are nonfiction books, all right? All of that is just because I like walking the Freetown State Forest. I just do, right? That's one of my favorite things to do in my free time. And when you start learning about Freetown, you start learning a lot of scary things, right? Just like when you start learning about Fall River, you start learning a lot of scary things, right? And those books are essentially just collections of all the things and the research and everything that I did over the years of picking stuff up about cryptids here and there and here and there and there and there. Now, before you ask me, no, I've never seen a cryptid at Freetown State Forest. I've seen a black bear, but I've never seen a cryptid, okay? No puckwudgies. I've seen the puckwudgie sign, right? And you think I invest so much time and energy and effort into puckwudgies that I hope I could find one, right? Here's the thing about that writing, guys. You might write it and be like, this is pure garbage, okay? Don't worry about it, okay? Don't worry if it's a mess at first. It's supposed to be messy, okay? All decent, good writers have to submit their stuff to different editors, different readers, and when you get this fine, like this is different because these are self-published, right? And I'm going to talk to you about why that one of the negatives of self-publishing is that my books, these books, are not really going through the process that they would go through if they were going through a publisher. And because of that, they come across a little clunky, all right? Because when you self-publish, you kind of have to admit or subject that unless you're perfect, you're going to have some clunkiness in your work, all right? It's not going to be perfect. You're not getting as many eyes on it as you would get if a publisher had it, right? But don't worry about it. That's just the way it is, right? That's just the way it is, okay? It's hard, like I said, when you're talking 30 to 60,000 words, that's a lot of stuff to think in your head, right? And that's a lot of information for you to be holding at any given time. So it totally makes sense that you might screw some stuff up or misplace some stuff, right? Our friend Krista Carmen, we were at Once Upon a Bookstore in Fall River the other day, and she had this great thing. She was talking about her book, Daughters of Block Island, which won the award for the Bram Stoker Award. So this is a Bram Stoker Award-winning book, okay? And she thought it was, she thought she nailed it. She went through the process, vetted, and then she gets an email from a woman that said, okay, so the main character is supposed to be a vegan, right? And she's like, yes. She goes, in this page 226, she's eating fish. Right? But that's what I'm talking about. It's like no matter how much you do, stuff for some reason will slip through the cracks, all right? Don't worry too much about it, right? The key element, guys, when you're first starting is just to get it down on paper, right? Find your process, all right? Everybody does it their own way, okay? Do not waste your time and ask me if there's one definitive way to write that you know is going to work. My answer to you will be, I have no idea what your definitive way of writing is. But you need to go on that journey, right? For some people, you know, it will be just typing on a computer. This thing's got some lag, right? For most people, yeah, it's typing on a PC, a Mac, a laptop, desktop. Pretty standard nowadays, right? But, you know, you might be just typing on your phone, right? There's been times I've been in the middle of Freetown State Forest and I just fire up Google Docs and I just... There's been times that I've been lying in bed and I was like, oh my God, now I know how to get from point A to point C, right? There's no modality that's going to make your story any more or less valid, all right? There isn't. The important thing is you get it down, okay? Like I said, even if you want to use a quill, just to be direct, let me tell you something. I was at the H.P. Lovecraft convention 2 years ago, and it was like the older writers were doing this battle where they were trying to show who was more hardcore. And people were like, well, I only write on a notebook, and I only write on a steno pad. And I was like, anybody write on a quill? Like, everybody was trying to see who was the most old school hardcore. And I'm like, at the end of the day, guys, it's going to be a Windows doc file. Okay? So don't feel that you're not valid, right? But that being said, if this gets you to the place mentally that you need to be to write that thing, then do it, right? Because it's so hard at times to get mentally in the right mindset for what you're writing that, yeah, maybe sometimes a little accoutrement helps you feel a certain way, right? Maybe sometimes taking a trip out to a forest and writing it on a park bench gets you to feel a certain way, right? Never be embarrassed at how you arrive, right? The important thing is that you arrive. So just get your story down first. Don't worry about perfecting it yet. The first thing you need to do is you need a story, okay? You don't need an idea. Ideas are easy and they're cheap. What you need is a story, okay? What you need is a manuscript, okay? That's why another thing that'll drive writers crazy, never go up to a professional writer and say, I have so many great ideas. If I give you the idea, can we split the cost? Do not do that. Do not do that, all right? First off, writers have plenty of ideas already cooking. Trust me, I guarantee you, okay? If you go up to any writer at any given time, they're probably 20,000 words into something already, okay? So once you have it, Here's the thing, really important, read it out loud. I'm sure your English teachers have said this to you, and I can't emphasize that enough. There is something about when you read your prose out loud that makes you go, oh my God, that sounds horrible. Right? That sentence does not sound like a sentence should sound. Okay? There's something about when you can look at it on the paper a million times, and a million times it'll make complete sense to you. And you'll say it out loud and you're like, oh my God. Right? I had a reading last night in Westerly, and I was reading a Lizzie Borden story, and as I'm reading, I'm like, ugh. I'm like frustrated, and I wanted to edit as I'm reading it, right? And I'm like, I already sold this thing, like it's done, I can't touch it, right? But I'm still standing there in front of these people going, right? So read it out loud and then start your second draft, right? Writing is about rewriting, okay? When you write your first draft is essentially you going out and buying a giant mountain of clay. That's what it is. You're just going out and getting yourself a big, just giant blob. That's your first draft. Your second draft is when you start eliminating the stuff from that blob, okay? Your second draft is when you start seeing this thing look like something, right? But that first draft, it's going to have way too much stuff. It's going to have a lot of things going on that are not quite good, but start working on that second one. I'm going to talk to you a second and bore you about formatting, okay? The format that people use professionally if you're going to submit anything is the Shun format, okay? I believe this takes you to the official Shun website. Let me tell you right now, if you submit anything, nowadays any submission call gets between 400 and 1,000 submissions, okay? And that's usually for 20 spots. So if you're not formatted a certain way, right off the bat, boom, you're out. Okay? You'll get that drop letter so fast. Okay? They're serious. As soon as they open up your email or they open up your Word file, if they don't see the right font, the right spacing, you're out. Out. Okay? And it's not like English class. You won't be able to sit there with the teacher and try to work on just getting yourself a C and get through class. You are out. Done. Okay? It's not that complicated. It really isn't. It is totally not that complicated, all right? So when we talk about Shun, basically what we're saying is, what I do is I create generic the cotton candy is kind of blocking a little bit. I create generic templates for books and for short stories in Word. So I have something called Word generic paperback or Word generic short story. You know, you have your block here with your personal information, your word count, your title, and then you go on your stuff. The important here, your line spacing, you want your indent on your first line. Double space is what most editors want. Okay? Double space is what most editors want. Okay? Everything I'm telling you is on average, right? Everything applies differently depending on what they're asking for. What I do personally, since I know that if I'm self-publishing, my final product is going to be a 6x9 trade paperback, I set up my stories at 5.5 by 8.5 so that as I'm writing it, the way it looks on the page is where it's going to kind of sit on the page, right? Because as I'm going to tell you here in a little bit, when you upload your thing to Amazon, it's going to, especially with Kindle especially because Kindle uses flow and reflowing, right? And if you don't have an understanding of where your words sit on the page, it'll be a hot mess, okay? You will get your book and you'll be like, oh my God, what even is this? Right? You'll have paragraphs, gaps, things here. Pictures, oh my God, pictures will be a nightmare. Okay? You will not believe it's like they put everything in a blender. Okay? So I set myself up at 5.5 and 8.5 because that's as close to this as I can get. 5.5, 8.5, 12 point Times New Roman. Right? Times New Roman or Courier New. Okay? And if you do that, if you make a template, the beauty of that is that once you're started, you're good. You just got to stay on that. right? And be mindful of that. Many editors prefer Word or PDF. Editors hate Google Docs. Hate them. Right? Does anybody know why? What's that?
Anytime you make a comment, it sends you a notification.
Right.
Yeah.
Every change you make a comment, they get a notification. And they don't got time for that. Right? Most editors want you just to send it in Word so they can do the edits. They can track edits and changes, right? One of the big things if you're trying to prove that you didn't use AI is being able to show your changes so that they could see the evolution of your work, right? Just like, in math when you say, can I get, points for my work, right? Same thing now with writing, okay? If you could track your changes, you could show your teacher, your editor, your publisher the work, okay? So now you have a story and it's formatted properly, now what, okay? Beta readers, editors, all right? This can be hard, okay? It is hard. The problem is 9 times out of 10, the people most qualified to help you with it are already so busy doing it, okay? Asking someone who writes to read your stuff, if they like you a lot, they'll do it, but chances are they're already tremendously busy, and it's going to be a while, okay? But this is an essential part of the process, all right? So where can you find people? Social media, writers groups. Now, the next two have a caveat, friends and relatives, okay? Part of that caveat is they're not professionals, right? The second thing is their relationship with you is going to taint their approach to how they're going to criticize you, right? What you really kind of want is someone who's completely dispassionate because you want to get an honest feedback and not like, I like you, so I'm not going to say it totally sucks. Or I like you, so I'm not going to be critical of this, right? Then that's the thing you got to be mindful of. There are people that you'll find online, on social media, in writers groups that are willing to look at your stuff. Now, the bad news is it might cost you some money, right? Getting a hold of professional editors often will run you some cash. Okay, so be mindful of it. A big part of why I did the class this summer with Crystal Lake was that I was going to have 3 of their editors go through my work, and the entire cost of the class was only $160, right? So for $160 to have a publisher and 3 editors do drafts of my novel, great, right? Great. All right. Any questions so far? I know I'm going really fast. Right? All right, so let's talk about AI, all right? That's always the elephant in the room, right? Now, like it says here, most anthology blog and contest editors have absolutely citing their rules and the guidelines for what they do not want in terms of AI. If you are submitting, whatever the submission call is, read it thoroughly. Then read it thoroughly again. Then read it thoroughly again, okay? Because like I said earlier with formatting, you will get the boot if you're even a hair off, okay? If they're doing an anthology about black cats at fall who wear red caps, and you send them a story about a black cat in fall wearing a blue cap, they will reject it. Because they have plenty of red cap stories, right? And you will get super upset, okay? And sometimes they'll even say to you, we really love your story, except for the fact that your cat has a blue cap, right? That is a real thing that can happen to you, right? So let's talk about AI. Now, I designed this with AI to show you something, right? Part of why you should be mindful of AI is it totally screws up, right? Remember one thing about AI. AI often has a self-rule, which it cannot duplicate what it makes, okay? And because of that, you get aberrations, okay? Even if you're asking it a basic, straightforward thing, if you ask it twice, you're going to get 2 separate things, right? And then you're going to get aberrations, okay? Just weirdness, okay? Even for something as simple as straightforward as this, okay? That's one of the things that'll show up, okay? That being said, AI is not just one singular thing. The big red flag, the bad boy of the room, is generative AI, right? Generative AI would be you going into ChatGPT and say, write me a story about blankety blank that's 5,000 words. And you just step away, it writes a story, you cut and paste it, boom. Okay? Generative AI is doing all the work for you. Okay? That's the number one bad of the bad of the bad of the bad. All right? That you don't want. Then you have assistive AI. Now, this is currently debated and will continue to be debated. And even when I show you the horror writers' rules here in a second, the big problem with assistive AI is it's in so much of our stuff, right? We all know that corn syrup is bad for us, but do you realize how many things have corn syrup in it? And the hot mess it would be to try to get corn syrup out of everything, right? So this is the problem because Microsoft Word has AI, Google Docs has AI. Almost everything we use for grammar and spell checking is in itself an AI, right? So the big question is where do we draw the line? When is it right or not right, right? That's why it's a yellow flag, because I feel like this is something that is still and will continue to be debated, right? Green flag, you know, whether you're doing grammar or spell check, if you can prove that it's an old-fashioned version that's not AI assisted, then you might be okay. But, that being said, even if you use only green flags, you could still pop positive for AI, right? What AI scanners look for the most part, is if you write too well, okay? So really good writing with really good grammar and really good spelling will get you pop positive for AI. So if you're an educator and you're using AI scanners, be mindful of that. Be careful, right? Because a lot of fake positives, right? A lot of fake positives with the scanners. Because remember, when you're using an AI scanner, you're using AI to scan AI, right? You're using a thief to tell you how did someone break into your house, right? Always remember that, okay? And be mindful, okay? Like I said, using AI to scan for AI could be problematic. Make sure your rewrites are your own, because the really tempting thing, and I've been tempted myself, is when you get that little thingamadoo and it's like, you should rewrite it this way for clarity, and you want to go, oh, but it's like, no, right? Keep that in mind. Using AI to fix or scan for AI can also be a problem, okay? This is just the HWA rules. You guys can read this if you download the thing, but the Horror Writers Association had to make hard and fast rules because people were literally quitting because most of the bigger writers wanted an absolute purity, zero tolerance stance on this. And the problem with purity, zero tolerance stance on AI is that some people use spell checks. Here's the tough part, right? Most editors nowadays don't want to edit. They don't want to edit. Okay? If you send them stuff with grammar and spelling problems, they get really upset with you. They send it right back to you and they go, fix it! Right? So a lot of people are going to lean into AI-assisted programs just to clean up their work, right? Not to make the story for them or write the story for them, but just to clean it up, right? So the HWA was having problems with its members because a lot of the members were like, no, zero tolerance, right? And that's a problem when you say that, because then some people are like, well, you know, I've been using Word for however many years, or I've been using a word processor for however many years, right? If it's zero tolerance, how do we do it? And then people were trying to figure out how to go into Word and you'd have to go into Word and turn this off and turn that off and turn this off. You'd have to go deep into the settings and do all this stuff, right? So the AI, what the HWA said essentially, no generative AI software, whether cloud-based or locally installed on any of their servers or devices, right? Now, they're letting some things go with assistive things, right? Remember, if you're a disabled person and you got to use voice to text, you're using AI, all right? There's a lot of different things that AI does just to help disabled people or people who have, you know, reading issues or dyslexic or things like that, right? So once again, it's really tough to be zero tolerance, okay? So let's talk about the good and the bad for self-publishing, okay? So the good thing about self-publishing, number one, is full creative control over your content, all right? The way it looks, the cover, the pricing, everything, right? You don't have a publisher telling you anything, right? It's faster to market. One of the reasons why I've self-published so many books is that I can do one in a few days if I really want to, right? Especially if it's a 16, a children's book is 32 pages, but it's only 16 pages of text, all right? So if I could clean it up and turn it out, I could turn it around pretty quick, all right? If you have stuff at home, a lot of us have trunk novels. If you've never heard the phrase trunk novel, what that means is a story or a book that you've already written, but you thought it kind of sucked, so you just never did anything with it, and then you kind of want to publish it, so later on in your life, you're like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and publish it, right? Some of the stuff I have is just trunk stories that I've had for a long time, okay? Higher royalty rates, you're going to get 35 to 70%. Right now, royalties is a massive, massive, massive problem in publishing, okay? The mid-level publishers are really, really, really doing a bad job paying their authors, okay? You will go on, if you go on social media and you have a lot of authors in social media, you're going to see a lot of people bitching about not getting their money, okay? And that leads to people who would rather self-publish, because if you self-publish, your money immediately comes in. There's no debate. You don't have to ask for an audit, all right? The group I belong to, the writing group, We Are Providence, we literally almost had to take the first publisher to court because they were trying to say that we hadn't made money in 5 years or something like that. And we're talking about books that have been nominated for Stoker Awards and all this other stuff. People were buying the books, right? So getting your own royalties, retaining the full rights, okay? You can publish it yourself, but if you want to sell it later on, you can. If you want to reprint it, you can. There are stories that I have in different parts, different collections, because if I think it's germane to this thing, I have the rights, so I can reprint it here or reprint it there, okay? And then you can easily update or revise content. I'm going to show you guys Amazon here in a second if I don't run out of time. But one of the beauties of Amazon KDP is I can upload a new Word file, and within 48 hours, everything's updated, right? So if I see a boo-boo, it's only about a 2-day turnaround before I can get that fixed, okay? Okay, global distribution through Amazon. The one thing I'm not going to cover today is Ingram Spark. But Ingram Spark is the second biggest or the biggest for self-publishing. Ingram Spark will also get you into libraries and get you into bookstores and do a lot more than KDP. But KDP, as I'm going to show you today, is kind of the easy way of doing it, right? Great for niche or specialized audiences. You could build a direct relationship with your readers, real-time reviews and sales metrics and feedback, and no gatekeeping, right? You can write anything you want. No one's going to tell you can't write it, right? For better or for worse. Now the cons, all right? And these are important. You got to spend some money up front, right? You're going to have to spend some money up front, whether it's to get an artist, whether it's get to an editor to look at it for you, whether it's have someone do layout, right? You might have to spend some bucks, all right? Even if you're just going to order copies for yourself, each one of these copies of Intrusive Thoughts cost me about $4.50, right? So if I'm going to an event and I want to sell copies, I have to pay, you know, if I want 20 copies, it's 20 copies at $4.50, and I got to pay that up front and hope that I sell it and make it in return, right? So I got to take the burden on myself. And if it's one book, that's not bad, but as you can see, I got a lot of books, and if I want to sell those books, I got to spend a lot of money just to have stock, right? One of the good things about Amazon is people can buy it, and Amazon's going to print it and send it to them. So I don't have to buy it and worry about getting it to them, right? But I make considerably less money if they do it that way, right? So no quality control unless you hire externally. Limited recognition in literary circles. You know, it's getting better. It's getting so that you don't have to be published by a major publisher to get put in for a Stoker Award or a science fiction award or the Shirley Jackson Awards or something like that. You can now submit your stuff independently or have your editors submit it and hopefully get it looked at. Same thing with limited recognition, literary circles and awards. All marketing is the author's responsibility, all right? So, let me do sidebar here. So, you will be expected first, put it this way, even if you want to get published, a publisher won't take you seriously if you don't, at the very least, have social media, and part of that is your own website, right? Someplace where people go and can see that you have been and are doing stuff, okay? You want to have a blog, you want to update your blog, okay? Whether it be events, contests that you're in, books, all this stuff. This is all just updates I've had recently, okay?
I don't know if they're seeing that on Zoom.
Oh, all right.
Sharing the wrong screen.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen?
yeah, so if you like go back down to the bottom, unshare, and then share the website.
How's that?
That should be, yeah, it should be working now.
Okay.
Screen now.
Yep. So you will be responsible for doing this stuff, okay? You just jump. So your website, one of the things that a lot of people do now is you create a link tree where you put your YouTube, your Facebook, your website, your Blue Sky or whatever account so that people could go to one-stop stop to see your stuff. You also want to make sure you have your Amazon page, author page, and make sure, don't just sign up with KDP and then just leave it. Like, you have to fill out the stuff for your author page, your bio, your background. You even have to at times tell them, this is my book, right? Especially if it's a book that you personally didn't write, but yet you were a part of. For instance, the copy of Dracula Beyond Stoker that I'm in, I had to let them know that I'm in that book. Monsters in the Mills, I had to let them know so they can include it in my list. All right. And yeah, even old fart stuff like Facebook, right? You have to keep it, maintain it. Facebook, remember, even some of you younger people will be like, oh, Facebook, really? How old are you? Yes, most writers right now are old. Okay, we are Gen X. We use Facebook. Okay, I have met most of my colleagues on Facebook. I met them on Twitter before Twitter became another thing. And we kind of all moved. And most writers now are on Blue Sky, Facebook, and Instagram. Okay, that's where most of them are. And it's where you can talk and have fellowship and meet up. And more importantly, join groups. Right? This is social media is where you're going to find a lot of writing groups. You're going to find a lot of people who just want to read. Okay? Average civilians, but you'll also find a lot of professionals. Yeah?
Do you have a separate Facebook page?
I don't. I need to do that though. Yeah. 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 No, but a lot of authors do. A lot of authors have it'll be their name and then it'll say author. Right? But I still don't consider myself at the point where I need a separate thing. I don't know why, but I'm getting there. Right? This is my grandson. We'll talk about him in a second. All right. I got him. I got to speed up. All right. Other cons. No advance payments. Harder to get a prestigious book review. Right? Let me switch this again on Zoom. Where is the Zoom?
I think we're good, just go full screen.
Yeah, it's sharing everything.
Oh, it's sharing everything now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. All right. So it is time consuming, all right? Because if you self-publish, you are taking the role of everybody that would be at a publishing house, whether it be editing, whether it be marketing, whether it be design, whether it be layout. If you self-publish, you are assuming all of those jobs. And each one of those jobs is a job, okay? It is work, it is time, it is effort, it is energy, right? Like it says here, lower initial sales without audience or strategy, right? If nobody knows you, like, what do you do? You know? One of the things, actually, I think I have it on here. One of the things I do is initially, I'll do like giveaways. All right, I'll do, jump. All right. I don't have that slide here, but I'll do a giveaway. When you join KDP, if you want to have your book as an Amazon Unlimited book, you could choose to be Amazon Unlimited. If you put your book into Amazon Unlimited, remember, your book is essentially free for thousands of people, okay? Putting your book in Amazon Unlimited, which is just a click when you're getting your book set up, essentially puts it into the world's library, okay? So you won't get a lot of money, right? And usually what I do is the first 5 days I release my books, I'll make them 100% free the first 5 days. And that usually will drive up my numbers as far as readership and monthly stuff, and it helps in that direction, right? I'm still missing a slide. Okay. All right, so we're running out of time, so let's get to it, all right? You want to create a book, all right? So first thing you need to do is you need to go to Kindle Direct, okay? Which is that QR code there, all right? Or if you download the slideshow, make sure you get that QR code. Once you go to Kindle Direct, it is actually a very, very simple process, all right? Once you go through the process of getting all your information in and they have your bank money and your information, everything else, it's almost just a matter of clicks. First, you want to click to do a new title. So the first thing you need to ask yourself right off the bat is, what is it do I want, right? Is my goal just to have an electronic book that people can get to, right? For instance, like if you're an educator and you want to just make a workbook for your students, right? And it's not going to be a physical workbook, then just making a just regular Kindle Flow thing works great, right? Or if you just want to get your stuff out there, works great, okay? Do you want a paperback? Do you want a hardcover, right? Hardcover is a lot of work, and I'm going to be honest with you right now, guys. There's hardly anything more satisfying than doing that, right? To getting a book with your name on it and being like, it's still rewarding. It never gets old, right? But that is another set of work. Each one of these versions has a process that you have to go through of submitting it, redesigning it, and getting it to fit, right? Like I said earlier, the standard is a 6x9, okay? Books come in all shapes and sizes, but the standard is a 6x9 trade, okay? This is your brick and mortar, this is your everyday driver, your EDC, if you will. This is the one you want to go for. And that's why, like I said to you earlier, go ahead and just format your Word file for this size. It's going to make your life so much easier, right? A children's book is an entirely different creature, all right? As you can see, kids' books, if you want it to look like a kid book, right? Something that your kid reads in kindergarten, you're looking at an 8x8, right? 8.25 by 8.25, okay? These things have very different rules, okay? This book has to be at least 32 pages. This book has to be at least 72 pages for them to print, okay? What makes this a hot mess is that if you want your designs to go to the edge, which this does not, right? And there's a reason why my kids' books don't go to the edge, because that is the hardest thing to get approved. Okay, Amazon goes crazy if they feel like your image bleed is not quite right, right? And if you don't get your layout perfect, they will send it back to you. They will not publish it until you get the layout perfect. You'll get a rejection email, and they'll say, this is why we reject it, fix it. And you got to go back and fix it, right? My workaround with kids' books has been to use Canva, because Canva has a preset for kids' books. So I know if I set up in Canva, as long as I get my stuff to lay inside these margins, I'm good, right? And then I can just get Canva to export it as a PDF in a CyMac, CMYK, so that the colors are right for printing, and I'm good to go, right? Same thing with Canva. If you make a template, makes it a lot easier. The kids' books, one of the reasons I use Canva is I can get all these nice generic backgrounds and stuff like that as part of my Canva membership, right? And for kids' books, you need just a lot of generic sort of backgrounds and stuff, and you just kind of pop them in there and you put your text over them, right? You need stuff that's, you know, really easy to kind of lay on top of. All right. So getting back. All right, the two things you need once you fire Amazon KDP, once you've decided what you want to do, whether it's a 6x9 trade or a kid's book, right? You need a docs file, a Word docs file, all right, or a PDF. A PDF they're only going to accept if there's illustrations, okay? They don't want to take it, and they definitely won't take a PDF for a Kindle because they can't reflow it, meaning they can't resize it on a person's Kindle if you send them a PDF, right? You have to do it in a docs file, right? So whether you know how to do Microsoft Word or not, you better learn how to do it, or you better learn how to export to docs. And then once you export to docs, if you're going from Google Docs to Microsoft Word, check your file because stuff might not be where you think it is. Okay, that's a big one. Then you need a cover for the cover creator, okay? A cover is going to be 3:4 or 3:2, okay, image. You want it as many pixels as you possibly can, but it's got to be in that type of thing because the way it works for these covers, I've gone to just doing the simple covers. The simple covers on Amazon, all I need is my front image that I design mostly in, I use the free thing, GIMP. I don't know if you guys use GIMP, right? I use GIMP, I use Photoshop, I use Illustrator. But the cover program lets me do this just sort of generic back cover and a generic spine. All I do is I just change the fonts. You can make a wraparound cover, but I'm going to tell you, just like with the kids' books, that's a hot mess to get right and to get them to approve, all right? It looks great. Some of these, I think this one over here, I'm seeing it, right? Some of these have wraparound covers, and it's much nicer because the whole thing has a nice flow to it. But if you notice, I went with really generic graphics here so that I could get it through, right? It's not as detailed as I want, but if you want a wraparound cover, you really have to nail all the specifications that they have, okay? So that's what you need. You need a Google Doc file and you need whatever you're going to do for a cover, right? So you pick what you want, okay? We talked about the size, right? Like I said, formatting children's books is a hot mess, right? But it's totally rewarding, right? So when you're done, what you have to do essentially is create 4 different books if you want to sell it every way on Amazon, okay? You got your Kindle, you have your audiobook, your paperback, and your hardcover, okay? Now, audiobooks, Amazon offers a free AI thing that will just take your book and make it an audiobook, right? But remember, it's going to sound like an AI person reading your audiobook, right? Now, if you don't have professional people that can read for you, or if you don't have a budget to spend on a professional reader, you know, if you just want it, then you can do it that way. It doesn't cost you anything, right? It goes right into, what do they call the audiobook thing? Audible. It goes right into Audible, right? But when you're done, this is what it should look like, right? And you pick your prices, and you have your author copies that you order there. I'm not trying to go from rags to riches, so I don't charge a lot for my stuff, you know, but it's up to you what you want to charge, okay? So if I'm charging only $5 for an ebook, I'm making 75 cents, right? Just to give you guys an idea, I want it to be completely transparent, right? If you think you're going to get rich and famous, you might want to wait on buying the Ferrari, all right? My total income this year from KDP, $564.63, right? Now, it's not zero, right? But once again, I'm not putting a down payment on a Ferrari with it, right? So keep that in mind, right? It is good, and that's not to say that you might not write something that becomes popular and you do hit it, right? But what I want you to do is kind of manage your expectations, especially at first, you know? What really matters to me is not that 564.63. It's my KENP, which is the total number of actual pages of mine that have been read. And this year I've had 40,592 pages read. Actually read, okay? Not just somebody bought the book and it sat on the shelf. That's people on their Kindles literally reading the books, right? Yeah. And that means way more to me than the $500, right? because it means people are actually reading it, right? For better or for worse. And for me, especially just to kind of wrap up, at my age, I wasn't going in thinking I was going to be Stephen King or be the next greatest writer. I just wanted to write things. I just like writing spooky stuff, right? I do this, I can't say it's a hobby because now I get paid for it, but in a way it's just to kind of make me whole, right? And to explain that to you better, let me talk to you about, I think I got the wrong slideshow here. Once again, why do I still write? First off, because the stories show me who I am, right? So like, a good example, I got this coming out. I made this, I think I showed you. This is for my grandson, right? And it's a book about why he got his name, where his name came from, right? And it's not something that I'm gonna sell like mass market and try to get out there. But if you wanna do something personal for people in your life or to share your family's history or something like that, what better way to do it than just make it a book? It doesn't have to be rocket science. You could just go on Canva, write some stuff down, grab some images, and then print it and just have it for you and your family, your kids, right? Because a little kid, one of the things I absolutely adore, I'm kind of stuck now because now that my nieces and nephews know I do this is them opening up my cryptid books this last year. So they all got the books and they all came with these 3D printed figures for each book. Because I got this company that I signed up for to get the rights to all their 3D animal files. It's called Flexi Factory. That's why they flex, right? So I can print up any of their characters, sell them or give them away, as long as I pay my royalty every year. But now I get to make them to coincide with the books that I write. So this year, for my nieces and nephews, I shared my spaghetti with a Yeti, which is kind of my version of a Dr. Seuss book that I tried to rhyme, right? So they get a Yeti and they get their book, right? So it's something where if writing is something you enjoy and you want to express and you want to make a fun, professional, good-looking thing, it's not impossible. I wish I had more time to get in depth with you guys about this, but it's something that is attainable. It's something you can do now, right? But you also have to manage, your expectations and ask yourself, what is it you really want from it, right? At what point are you getting joy from it or not joy? What about it is attracting you to it, okay? If you do that, then you'll never be upset, right? But if I ever get to do my other presentation and talk about trying to get published, that's an entirely different monster, right? That's an entirely different monster. One that you need an incredibly thick skin for, all right? Because it's one thing to do things for yourself and to be happy and proud. It's another thing entirely to try to do things for markets, all right? All right, guys, I'll wrap it up there. I know I'm just about out of time. Any questions? No? Yes?
This is so wonderful. Thank you for doing
Oh,
this.
thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
And seeing all your books.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful. I'm curious, do you have a certain printer that you go to that you work with?
No, it just Amazon prints it all. All of it.
Yeah.
Yep. I set an order for author copies, and they're usually between $3 and $7. The kids' books are the most expensive.
Yeah.
The kids' books are almost $10. And it sucks because it's one of the things I don't want to try to set. I was at Once Upon a Bookstore, and the woman there is so wonderful. And she's like, yeah, how much are you selling these for? And I told her, she's like, you're not going to make any money. I'm like, I feel guilty asking $20, you know what I mean, or $15, But yeah, I just let Amazon do all the work.
So do you ever print a big run?
Yeah. Well, to me, a big run's like 20 books.
20.
Yeah.
So I do have to make a quick plug
Yeah.
for the Writing Center tutors.
Oh, yes.
So
Yep.
You can have, if you're all interested in writing, which you're here, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming yes you are, right? You can also meet with any of our Writing Center tutors, our peer tutors, our
Mm-hmm.
professional tutors. Here in Fall River right now is Kathleen Hilton, and she actually worked in publishing. So, we're in person, we're also online, and we have asynchronous tutoring, right, that Amanda is the coordinator for. So please you know, and maybe we can get a guest appearance
Yeah.
by Professor
And,
Novello.
and like I said, you know, this is stuff that's going to cost you money otherwise. You know, while you're in college, you know, I feel like students a lot of times, like, they don't get the benefit of college. And I always say to students, you're surrounded by experts, you know? You sit there and go, oh, these are boring professors. It's like, these people also have passion and they have expertise and stuff. And most of us, if you get us talking, won't shut up, right? So if you ask us and you show some interest in our stuff, we will be glad to talk your ear off about it, right? And to have a writing center and to have people that you're not paying the money that can go in and look at your work and give you an analytic, you're going to be ahead of the game, right? And that's why I said earlier that my friends that do have English Lit degrees are ahead of the game because their understanding of fundamentals is just better, right? I had to learn a lot of things that they had learned years before me, right? I had to learn a lot of things that they already take for granted, right? So it's totally, if I could go back in time and if I had taken more English Lit back when I was an undergrad, I would have totally done it. I would have totally done it, right? But thank you so much. Any other questions? Any other questions? Yes. I'm going to be what? Oh, which? What's the date on that one? Once Upon a Bookstore coming up. Yeah, I'm doing one with I believe. Yeah, that's how tired I am, Laura. Well, I'm like shot. Eric Nunnally. Oh, and Eric Nunnally is an amazing writer, by the way, and we're going to be at Once Upon a Bookstore. If you don't know where Once Upon a Bookstore is, it's really hard to find. It's at the former Spindle City Mill, right next to the Hong Mee's restaurant, right? You got to walk up on the second floor where they have the kids' gymnastic thingamabob, right? But they are trying so hard. Serena's doing such a great job and trying. She's bringing some amazing authors to Fall River, like insane.
We're actually working with her for
Yeah.
on something for next fall.
Yeah.
So.
She's really, I give her so much credit. Like, I know she's got Clay McLeod Chapman coming with Krista again,
Yeah.
right? And I know, like I said, this Saturday, you know, she's got a murderer's row of great published horror authors that are going to be there. Like, it is wild, right? And you can go, it costs you nothing, right? Once Upon a Bookstore. Go get yourself some pad thai for lunch and then go upstairs and listen to famous authors. I mean, that's a good deal, right? And the pad thai is affordable, so keep that in mind, okay? But anything else? Anything else?
So I just want to let everybody know we have a bunch of Rick's books around. We have them set up on display, but they don't have to stay on display. You can absolutely check them all out, grab them, read them, and up his page read numbers. So please take them with you if you want a good read on this Halloween weekend.
Now,
Thank you, Rick.
take them with a grain of salt too, because remember, those are the ones that are in here are all self-published. So there are some boo-boos there probably that you'll find. And if you find a boo-boo, let me know. Let me know so I can fix my boo-boos, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you guys for showing.